going on, everybody? I'm Jimmy Don Kerr, and this is the SmallTown Collectibles YouTube channel. My guest today, in my opinion, I guess if I was trying to describe this guy in two words, it would be community builder. On his channel, you're going to see content such as Graders Notes, bi-weekly comic contest Roundup, and the retrospective. One of my favorite videos was actually a few months ago when he shared his quest to collect Captain America 100 to 454. I have a similar quest going right now with Captain America, so I found that one interesting. I cannot wait to get into this one. Everybody join me in welcoming to 10 questions Roger from the Metarog YouTube channel.
Well, thanks, Jimmy, man. What an honor it is to be on here. I mean, I've watched this show. I like because you get to know some of the community members on a much more personal level. And like Anachronic, I thought that was a great one. And of course, Freaky Louie. Anyway, I don't want to leave anybody out. They're all been good. So I'm really honored to be on here with you, that you invited me here on 10 Questions.
No, I've had you on the radar for a while. I've followed your channel really since I started. I think it might have been Gary B, the casual comic guy, that kind of turned me onto your channel. And then I followed, like everybody in the community, from a distance for a while. And I'm excited to have you on here, man. Like I said, it's somebody I've watched from the very beginning, and yeah, this is an honor for me. So thank you for coming. And Roger, we'll jump right into it, man. And question one is always the same. What or who got you into comics?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Really, I give credit to three different sort of concurrent circumstances. My parents are Cuban refugees. They came here from Cuba in the early 60s. I was born in Newark, New Jersey, though. So my brother was a lot older. And up there in New Jersey, he had a comic collection. Silver Age, early Spider-Man, Avengers, you know the deal there. And when he came down, he left all that up there. Somehow in the move it got lost. But he loved Metalmen, that quirky team of elements that somehow never seemed to be that powerful, but always seemed to prevail. And he had a few lying around after we moved down to Miami. And I was a little guy around 4 or 5, and I would see them on his bed. When he went to play with his friends, I would go in there and I'd look through the pages. Now, I couldn't really read English at this point. All my parents and my grandparents, they didn't speak too much English. They didn't read probably much at all. But I could sort of, make out what's going on. And then when I went and I started elementary school, I noticed that in the playground before and after school, they would trade and, for lack of a better word, gamble for comics. And I was like, oh, I've seen my brother have those, So I grabbed a few of his without his foreknowledge, and I would gamble them. And I won some and I lost some. But once I started getting into the different genres, and I saw that there were, things like horror comics, and there were Westerns, things like that. I really started getting into the medium. I loved the amalgamation of art and prose. Even as a young cub, it has always just spoken to me. It resonates with me. So I think that those are what really converged to my love. And then the last thing I would say is that in the neighborhood, my neighbor also collected comics, and he was a little bit older than I was. And he would give me a few here and there, Superman. I remember him gave me some Teen Titans, things like that. So those three, my brother started it. It sort of was reinforced in school. And then with my neighbor having them, there was too many outside influences for me not to love comics, I guess.
So you said, your parents came over here, nobody really spoke English, and you couldn't necessarily read the books. Was it the art that was really kind of, telling you the story?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, Spanish has a lot of similarity to English. So I could sort of tell by the root words, etc., what was going on to a very perfunctory degree. But yes, the art, I could follow it. A good story, a good comic can tell its story in the art without having to go into deep kind of word bubbles and explanatory things like that. And these comics I thought were written in such a way so that you could follow them even if you weren't that proficient at the English language. And but that is something that drew me in because a lot of things were in English that I didn't know, that I couldn't, like books, for example. But comics I could follow along and I could still enjoy.
Well, it's interesting. So, as you know, as you were growing up, I mean, it's almost like comic books were, because I've heard people tell me that before, that one of the things they try to do if their kid doesn't necessarily like to read is they try to get them to read comics because was that kind of the case for you that helped you develop your ability to read English?
Yes, that was a very pivotal part, I believe, of my segueing from Spanish to English. That, and also I would watch public television, Sesame Street, Electric Company, and of course my brother was now pretty proficient in English, so we would have conversations, and I would ask him to translate things for me, and then once I got into grade school, I was reading fairly proficiently. He, I also had an English Spanish dictionary, so that helped me out quite a bit. And at some point, I just got to the English dictionary, started reading that, and Stan Lee would always have these words that were 50-cent words, for lack of a better term, and I would look them up, and that sort of helped me along in my English language to the point where I became fairly proficient.
That's cool. That's interesting. Yeah. Let's jump over to question two. And I like to ask this of everybody because people collect different ways, specifically when it comes to comic books. Some people collect for the art, for the covers. Do you consider yourself a reader or a collector?
Well, I think there was I think they're not mutually exclusive, first of all, but I think I transitioned. I started as a reader. I would I would get comics just in whatever random fashion I could. If it appealed to me, like if Captain America was on the cover, I would try to get that one from the school, from the gambling, or the trading, right? If I saw Metal Men comics, I would always, try to get those because I just was very the characters just resonated with me, right? And I wanted to read those comics. It brought a joy, and it brought a level of entertainment that I really didn't have in other avenues. Later on, I would say when I came into my early teens, maybe even 12, I really started what I would say the collecting phase, which is like accumulating runs of those those titles and those characters that I wanted to learn more about. And so I tried to go backwards and forwards, when buy the new ones. But, if I saw the old ones, back then there were really no comic shops, in Miami where I was, but we had in school, we would have like these, I think quarterly, I think they used to call them junk sales. And, all the comics that were confiscated in the school were there, for 5 cents a piece. So
Right.
you could pick up a good amount of comics there for next to nothing.
No, that's cool. So, and this will be question three, and I think we'll kind of get, because I think some of the questions that I want to ask will kind of revolve around this. What's your favorite
Right.
age of comics to collect?
Wow, that's a toughie. Gosh, every age has some kind of really attractiveness to me, except the modern age. I stopped collecting really in about 2000, right? But I guess if you held me down and tortured me, I'd say the Bronze Age would be my favorite because that's the age that I grew up with, starting in the early 70s. But man, I love those Silver Age silly comics, and I love the formative years of the Golden Age and the Atom Age too. But if you tied me down and threatened me, I'd say Bronze Age.
So, I know, like for me, I guess I'm more modern. I mean, just from the time frame that I really kind of collected in, it's probably, and I like to read a lot of the new titles. But one of the ways that people collect, like you said, you are a run collector. Now, are you a completionist like in your everyday life, and is that why you like to collect the runs, or is it just putting those stories together and then being able to read them from start to finish?
A little bit of both. I don't like to have incomplete story runs. That's true. I mean, previously, before the internet, there was no other way of completing it. I mean, this was before there were, compilations, trade paperbacks, things like that. So you had to sort of hunt down the actual floppy to get the comic. And let me tell you, it was sometimes mission impossible. Before there were comic shops in the very late 70s, and that was like that was like the gates of comic heaven opening up before me. But I am a completist, hardcore, I would say. I like to complete the original runs with the either by character or by series. For example, like you were talking about the Captain America run. Well, some storylines sort of bleed over into the Avengers. Some bleed over into even Nomad, things, titles like that. So I will get those ancillary comics because they're critical to the storyline. Otherwise, if you just have Captain America, you'll miss. There's a Hulk crossover, I think. So I'm both, right? I mean, I want to have that story, but I also want to complete that run. I get a real deep sense of accomplishment by completing a long run like Captain America, which I think was, I think it ended in the mid 90s and it started in the late 60s or early 70s. So that's, a good 30 some year run.
Yeah, it is.
And that's, to me, that's pretty cool,
Yeah, no, there is and I agree with you. I am a completionist by nature, right? Just when I start something, I have to finish it. Like I have to, and that really carries over into my collecting. And there is something. It's the thrill of the hunt. So, like when you're hunting books, like are you more of like a flea market kind of guy? Are you an eBay kind of guy? Like your LCS backroom? Like how do you like to look for your books?
Yeah, I have really bad luck on eBay. I mean, I've had just some horrible things happen to me on eBay. So that is always my measure of last resort. I'd rather much go to estate sales, LCS conventions, and since YouTube has come up, Jimmy, this community has been just an amazing resource. I mean, I've filled holes into my collection because of the relationships that I've formed that I would have had to pay 10 times or who knows, or maybe not even found it if it wasn't for members of this community. So yeah, eBay is always, to me, the last resort. I'd rather be a little patient, find them at conventions, LCSs, usually in the cheap bins. I'm a cheapskate collector too, Jimmy. So I don't like to pay market price for any comic. That's
nothing wrong with that.
That's not the way I roll.
I love it. No, I was raised by two men who were like that. My dad and my uncle, who I talk a lot about, they didn't like to pay market price for anything. If you were going to buy it, you would go dig around somewhere in a barn or something and find it like that. That's how you did it. So I was raised with kind of that, so no, that's really close to home. I love it. So question 4, and I knew you liked Bronze Age comics, right? Like I knew that's what you liked. And
Right.
do you read anything at all that's new, like the stuff that's coming out now, like Something Is Killing the Children, or some of these indie titles? Do you read any of that stuff?
No, I'm afraid not. The exception being this: when I win, for example, like I think Nick's at Kits and Comics, I think I won his contest in your celebratory stream. I think he's sending me some newer comics. Well, when I get them, like from a prize or from a community member, I do read them. I don't like to disparage anybody, right? So I figure if they're sending it to me, the least I can do is give them a shot and read them. That's their intended purpose. So that is something I will do. But again, if a certain character that I've been following for a long time, for example, a couple years ago, there was a Metal Men miniseries by DC, 12-issue miniseries, and they don't come out that often. Metal Men is, they come out every few years. There's a crossover or something. So I did acquire that. Now, Jimmy, I acquired it after the series was over. Went to the LCS and I got them for $1 each. Right. So right. So, and then I read them, and mixed results. But it's not that I'm like, I just because it's new, it's not. I don't have like a sort of some kind of grudge against them, right? To me, they're just getting too expensive, and I can read a modern comic in 5 minutes, and that's slow. I'm a quick reader. I'll admit that, right? I can go to a Bronze Age comic. It'll take me 3 or 4 times as long. So I prefer to have a more in-depth kind of comic, and the modern one just is not made for me. And that's not a slight on anybody who does read them. I just come from another era that the comics were very different.
Yeah, and that was actually the kind of the point of the question. Is I was kind of wondering, because I've done that a lot recently, and I've said it on here many times. I enjoy reading, and not just comic books. I read a lot of different things. But I've been going back and reading some Bronze Age stuff. I've been because I like Daredevil. I've been going back and reading some Bronze Age Daredevil, some Bronze Age Cap. Some different things. I even started like the Star Wars run and was kind of reading through it. And the thing that you notice is that it is very wordy. Back then, it takes 10 times longer to read it. The art's fantastic, much like it is today. It's a different style, I think, today than it was back then. But it is very wordy. And I wanted you to kind of compare and contrast, like, since Bronze Age is kind of your thing, like Bronze Age books to like a modern reader and what they're doing. Like, kind of give me some differences between the two eras.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot more emphasis on the art being being outstanding in the sense that it has to be impactful, right? The modern comic book, the art is it's crisp. It's like, it's very out there, very stylized.
And a lot of that's because it's digital, right? A lot of people are doing digital art.
Right. That's part of it. I mean, back in the Bronze Age, you had line drawing, you had the inking, you had the coloring, that there were imperfections. That's why the modern comic, a lot of the art looks fairly similar to me. All right. Now, there are differences, of course. I'm not saying there isn't, but the overall theme of it looks very similar to me. In the Bronze Age, you had so many diverse styles. Carmen Infantino is like diametrically opposed to like John Byrne, right? If you're talking about Robins, it has nothing to do with George Perez. They're so distinct, right? But now the distinctions have really the gap has really closed to the point where the distinctions are minuscule to me. A lot of it is very, very well done and very well rendered, right? I mean, crisp. There's nothing out of place. Everything is really, really just focused in. But the writing is just it just doesn't resonate with me. I don't know how else to say it, but that it doesn't have the soul that the Bronze Age comics have to me. And again, that's to this old fogey. That's no slight to anybody who's reading the modern comics. They probably said the same thing when I was reading Bronze comics, and they were Golden Ager guys, So it's just a generational difference. That's all.
No, I can agree with that. I mean, because I know as far as what I read, it's not difficult for me to read it. It's just different when I go back and read older books. It does take a lot longer. There's a lot more to digest as far as the words are concerned. And a lot of comic books today rely heavily on the art to move the story, I think. Like I said, I enjoy reading a lot of modern books. I enjoy reading a lot of older books. It's just, I like to read. So, but yeah, I thought it would be interesting to kind of hear that distinction from you because, watching your channel, it's pretty clear that you like the older stuff and the Bronze Age specifically. I know I've seen you send a book off to Jerry, and Jerry kind of did his thing with it, which is just amazing. And so I kind of thought that would be an interesting, interesting to hear you give that distinction. Let's roll over to question 5. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why you started your YouTube channel, because I find I'm much older than a lot of the people that I talk to on a daily basis on YouTube that I become friends with. I mean, I'm 10, 15, sometimes 20 years older than these people.
Mhm.
And as an older gentleman yourself, and I won't say older, wiser gentleman yourself. That's what I like to say about
You
myself.
can say older. That's fine.
Yeah,
It's true.
as
The truth
older,
hurts
older and
sometimes.
wise. We'll put it together. Older and wiser gentleman yourself. Like, what drew you to YouTube to start doing content?
Well, this is a kind of unusual story. I think I was watching YouTube probably for a year or so. I was very busy in my job, but I moved, and then things got a little bit a little bit slower. And I saw a gentleman that showed a video of his comics, and he had the 1976 Marvel 30-cent test market variants. And he showed several. And I mentioned in the comments that I had a complete set of them, all 186, I believe, of them. And these were comics that were only available in 6 test markets, much lower produced, probably less than 5% of the print run of all across all Marvel titles from, I believe it's April through August 1976 were 30-cent variants. And he said, "Oh, I'd love to see the whole set," right? So I said, "Well, when I get a phone or a camera that I can get it on YouTube, I'll show it." And lo and behold, about a couple months later, I think it was right around now, early November, 4 years ago, I put them all together. It's a terrible video, Jimmy. It's boring as heck. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I just threw them up there and started babbling. But I put it up there, and he said, and I got all these comments, Jimmy, like the comments you get on your shows, right? "Oh, love to see this. What else do you got?" So I started showing other variant sets and other distribution variations and things like that. And I just got more comments, and then people started to want to request things of me. So I just sort of got sucked into that vacuum of requests. And then other channels started to say, "Hey, could we collaborate on this or that and the other?" And I was like, me, I can barely get the camera to focus, and you want me on here? So I sort of grew into the community that way, just because the incredible support, love, and positivity that was there. I couldn't say no to them, because they were just so gracious, and that really attracted me.
Cool. So you've been doing it for about 4 years now.
That's correct. Yes.
So, like, how much has your channel changed, like from the inception of it to 4 years later? I mean, obviously, I mean you do well on camera. As far as that goes, I don't mind to watch you. So, like, how has your channel changed? Have you kind of grown into it and become much more comfortable with it?
I think so. I think I think initially, I said I never had the plan. I never had any kind of thoughts about doing this for this long, right? I thought I was going to do that one video for that one guy, and that's it, right? And I'd go back to watching, ETA Nick and Reaper Tate and those guys that were around there, Don Comic Book Junkie, that that were doing this. These are the guys that Howler Mouse, that really were the old guard here, Doctor Strangelove. But it just sort of happened, right? It just sort of occurred, and I think at that point I was just sort of doing videos without really planning and just throwing comics up there and giving my thoughts. Now I have a lot. I have a lot of more a forethought that goes into it, more research. I still am very low tech. I don't put graphics. I don't put voiceovers. I do generally a one take video. And then several years ago, Silver Age Dave was doing the comic book roundup, because people were starting to do a lot of contests, and he would put like these post-it notes on his board, right? But he has a big family. He has a job that requires him to do a lot, have a lot of hours put in. And so he asked if I would take it over. And so I did. And that is like sort of took my channel to the next level, because now a lot of people were sending me messages. Hey, I'm going to do a contest just to let you know. And, could you put me on your channel? Things like that. Right. So that sort of I was already in the community of sorts, but that sort of made me, one of the central figures in it. And again, that is something I can't even imagine, how it occurred to me, that blessing that Silver Age Dave gave me. And it's work, it takes several hours to watch all these videos and to get all the requirements and put them on Post-its and so forth, and then make the video. But I've enjoyed it over the years, and now things are kind of slowing down. So I'm sort of reimagining that a little bit. I'm going to make it much more informational. But for the past 2-3 years, that has been, sort of the linchpin and what I'm known for in my channel.
Well, that was actually question 6. And so I want to dive into that just a little more, was about how comic book, or how comic contest Roundup came to be. So you're telling me that it was actually Silver Age Dave who was doing that, and he kind of asked you to, I guess, carry the torch, so to speak, and move forward with it.
Yes, exactly. He was doing that. So he was doing it kind of informally. He'd have a board with the little Post-its, and he, for whatever reason, he always wanted to shout me out, right? And in his videos, I owe him a lot, because in the very young formative times that I started my channel, and Jimmy, congratulations on your 1,000, by the way. You've grown so quickly. I couldn't be happier, man.
Thank you so much.
I mean, that tells me a lot, and your friends, what they did for you. I mean, man, I tell you, you're a blessed man for sure to have people like that.
No doubt, man. And thank you.
I know that wasn't the question. I know it wasn't a question.
Well, no, but you shouted me out too, though, Metarog, and that's one of the things that you've done, and that'll kind of lead us into the next question. But go ahead and talk about Comic Book Roundup, and then kind of tell us what you're looking to do. I know you said it's going to be more informational, but kind of dive into that a little bit.
Right. Well, what's occurred here is that when I first started doing the Roundup, I would get quite a few views, 150, 160, things like that. And I always tell everybody, views is not the end all be all of a channel. Whether I get a lot of views or not, this doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't depress me. Doesn't quash my passion, anything like that. But it's telling me the fact that now I'm down to 50, 60 views, that that it's gotten stale, or something has to change, right, for it to be more effective. And what I'm thinking of doing is doing a very short video, like those video shorts, with just putting the new contest on there, giving them a very brief explanation, putting all the links below, and hopefully that shorter format will attract more people. I'll still be doing shout outs separately, support videos separately, but the Roundup is going to be much shorter, much more informational, and hopefully more targeted to people who just want to know what contests are out there so that they can join.
Cool. All right. So question 7 is this, and it was kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. All those channels that join me on my giveaway, not a lot of places, man, where you find people who will do that kind of thing for you. I mean, I've done it for other channels. One of the things that I started doing when I first started my channel, I did shout out videos. And like I said, you shouted me out many times. And I said in my opening that one of the things that I think about you when I think about Roger from Metarog is community builder. And how important in this thing of ours is that community building?
Well, this is interesting, right? Because again, the reason I like doing that, Jimmy, and the reason I think it's sort of my responsibility is because of those that came before me, and those that set an example of community building. like I said, when I first started, I was like everybody else. I was not known by anybody, not zero subscribers, just by happenstance I was here. But there were other channels that saw me and I guess saw some potential. And they started making videos saying, "Hey, subscribe to Metarog. He's doing this, he's doing that. You know, and that really impressed me and it touched me. So I found it that I should pay that forward in my YouTube channel. So I always and in all my streams I always have my moderators. If there's a channel on there that I don't recognize or that I see is very young, I ask them to put the link in the chat because I want everybody to give them a shot. I never want to force somebody to subscribe to anybody else, but I do want them to give them exposure, at least give them a try, right? Because your next favorite channel may be the link that somebody put in your chat and you just didn't know about it. So when I did my 1,000 subscriber stream, which was 2 years ago, I think, about 2 years ago, I made it about the community. I had giveaways. But the requirement was back then, Jimmy, you could put you could click on somebody's icon and subscribe to them right from there. You didn't need to put links or anything in there. So my requirement was before every giveaway, you had to subscribe to everybody in the stream, right? So some people picked up 70, 80 subscribers that night. And that is what really touched my heart. That's what made all this really made it all worthwhile to me. They didn't have to subscribe to me. That I don't care about that. I just wanted to get 1,000 subscribers so I could have my my party there and I could have the tab, But I did want others to come together and to get to know each other, like you were saying. Like if we were at a party or a bar and say, hey, Jimmy, this is my buddy Roger. Meet John. That kind of nexus is what I think is necessary for us to be able to grow as a community, because it grows exponentially. But once you get to know that other channel, then that other channel could tell somebody else about you, and it goes on and on and on. So that is why I do that, because it was done to me, and I love paying it forward. I love to see others grow, and I love to see this community. I love the content, and the more the better.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And really, it's one of the things about the community that really, I don't know that it surprised me. I guess I just didn't know. So I guess it was a surprise because I always there was a few people around here that knew I collected comics, but it wasn't really like the thing, I went out and talked about. And I've said it on here many times. I found something that I didn't even know I was missing. And that is this community and how kind everybody is and will shout you out. Hey, go give this. I'm like you. I'm not going to make you subscribe to anybody, but go check them out. Give them a shot. There's a lot of cool people. And then people like Gary B, the casual comic guy, who did the hashtag Grow Together initiative. I think all that spawned from what you do. I think Stevie B, he gives Stevie B some credit. I know he gives credit to you, to me anyway. And I just think that's so wonderful. And it's just the best part of this whole thing is the community and getting to meet people like you who otherwise I probably would have never met.
Yeah, good point. And Gary, I think, is right. He's taken it to another level, right? He's got hashtag. I didn't have hashtags or anything. I was just like, there's a 1,000 subscriber contest. Be there. We're gonna grow the community. I think I said community building stream, right? And we had, like we had my friends on. We had giveaways, but the giveaway is just the leader, right? It's not the objective. And Gary he's so good, and not only does he do that, but he's also a heck of a comic book guy,
Yeah, he is.
Mean,
he's got great knowledge.
Yeah, Conan, Red Sonja. I've been on a couple streams with him and love that man to death. I mean, he is really like one of those quintessential comic book collectors that I just love watching.
Cool. All right. So question 8 is I wanted to talk a little bit about Grader's Notes because that is one of your shows that I do watch. I don't always get to watch it all, but I usually try to hop in and see what books you guys are talking about. So what is it about that segment that drew you to it, I guess, or where did the idea come for that segment?
Well, that was the brainchild of Genome Presents. David is his name, and he knew that I loved. I've read all my comics, Jimmy. I got 11,000 of them hanging around here. Okay, I have read all my comics. It's just something that I have a passion for, right? So if I have a comic, I'm going to read it. I mean, at night, sometimes my wife goes to bed, I sneak off, and I read comics, right? So
I do the same thing. Every night before I go to bed, Amy lays down, I sit in the bed, and then I read. That's what I do. Every night before I go to bed, I read comic books.
Wow, cool. Yeah, we have similar habits then. I don't read them every single night, but whenever I can, right? So he messaged me and he said, "Hey, I'm going to start this new show, and I've got a couple people in mind, and I'm one of them." And what attracted me to it is that we do this deep dive into the comic. We essentially eviscerate the comic. Okay, we look at every little nitpicky aspect of this comic. And if you've seen the show, right? You see Comic Head, he's going to say, "Well, this face is, You see, Genome, he's going to say, "Well, this dialogue is really, banal." Yeah. And then we have Mr. Miracle, the crudgy curmudgeon, who will rip anything apart in concept, right? So these are great guys to be with too, because they are deep to the bone comic fans. They're not just getting a comic, sticking in a slab and sticking on a wall. They are actually invested in the actual comic book itself, what it means to them, right? And I love that show. I mean, I don't know if it comes across, but man, we are just giddy, before and after that show, because we take a comic, we take no prisoners, like Biggie Shack. We did a Jack Kirby comic, and we said this is not his best stuff. He got upset. He texted us and he called us. You guys are rough and all this, So we get reactions from it, and man, we really do appreciate all the support we get for that show, because it's unique in that we just take one comic or one storyline and we just give it sometimes it's very positive, sometimes it gets like a 4 or 5, and that's high praise, because we are very critical of the comic, and but I really do enjoy it, and I'm so glad that Genome asked me to be a part of it, because it's one of my favorite the shows to do here on YouTube.
No, it's very good. And the way you described all the guys is like spot on. Like it just, that made me laugh in my head. I was like, he's right. All those guys are exactly that. I mean, and that does come through on the stream. It comes through that you're having fun. And I find it, people will do reviews of books, right? But they don't break it down like you all do. Like it's a hard dive into whatever that book is that week. And I don't know, I just find it interesting. It's one of those that I like because I drive a lot, so I listen to a lot of content, and I enjoy listening to you guys carry on. It's a fun show. Is that something you guys think for the foreseeable future? Something that I hope you do anyway, because I enjoy listening to it.
Yeah, I don't see us slowing down on that. Some of the guys sometimes will miss here and there because they have responsibilities late at work. Some people do missionary work or things like that. And sometimes I'm out of town or whatever. But I think we all love it too much to let that one go. I mean, that's I think if it was only just the 4 of us watching, we would still do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why I tell people about 10 questions is I would do this. Like if I didn't make one other drop of content, I will never stop doing this, because you should never say never, right? But
right.
This will be the last thing that would go away, because I enjoy this so much. And I think that's part of what makes Grader's Notes good, is you can tell that you guys are friends and you enjoy talking about comic books together. And that is, like I said, it's just one of the things that I say, talking to Gary B, talking to Slot, talking to DJ Links, Remy Q, the guys from Whack Comics, Rob Fatstacks, all these people. it's just fun to hang out with those guys and BS about comics. And I think that really comes through with Grader's Notes. So I just wanted to tell you that because I really do enjoy that content from you. That's one of the things, like we were laughing earlier. I asked Roger, I said, have you ever seen 10 Questions? He said, well, Jimmy, to be honest, it's really about the only thing I watch on your channel. And I said, well, cool. And it kind of goes like that with everybody, right? I mean, you generally find content that you enjoy. And for you guys, I really enjoy Grader's Notes. That's one of the things for me. So
thank you. That means a lot, man. That means a lot. Trust me.
Yeah.
We love doing that, and we love to hear things like that because it really makes our day.
Cool, man. I'm glad. All right. So question 9. Do you collect anything else other than comic books, or are you strictly a comic book guy?
No, I do collect several other things, Jimmy.
Hey, once a collector, always a collector, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of in my DNA, I suppose. I don't even give it much thought, right? I mean, I was just sort of happens, right? Yeah, I have a coin collection. I have a paper money collection. I have a non-sports card collection. I did used to collect sport cards, but I got out of those, I think, in the late 80s. So I have a lot of the Marvel Universe cards and the DC Stars and the Star Trek, things like that. And I have those in binders, right? And I also have a retro video game collection, which is some of it is right there.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
So I was, when I was growing up, I had, an Atari 2600, and then I graduated to, Genesis, Nintendo, the trends, So I have most of them here, and I have a complete collection of an Odyssey 2, which is kind of a console which not a lot of people had back then. So yeah, I do collect several other things, as you can tell. I also used to collect a lot of sports magazines, Sports Illustrated,
Sure.
Things like that, Baseball Weekly, things like that. But again, I gave those up back in the late 80s.
No, I mean, I think that's cool. I think we're all like that, and that was one of the things. If you want to see some of Roger's collection with the trading cards, he does have some videos on his channel where he shows off some of those Marvel trading cards and things like that. And that is the trading card aspect of the comic book hobby is something I've been trying not to go down that rabbit hole. Right? It's kind of like Funko Pops. I try not to go down that because I collect too much as it is. I already collect trading cards. That was one of my first things as a kid. Was really collecting trading cards because of my uncle. He sold ball cards and comic books and things like that. So I was always around it. And I collect the Kentucky guys that play in the NBA. I collect their cards, generally the autographed or the memorabilia auto cards. And so what is it about those cards that you like? Is that something, again, from like earlier, or is there something that draws you to that particular card, that type of card, I guess?
Yeah, well, the particularly the 1975 and 1976 Marvel stickers are cards that when I was very young, I would see them around, but I would generally try to buy the comics and I would not buy the stickers. But I ran across them in a estate sale many years ago, and the complete set. So I got those two. But I just like the fact that you can store them in a very small space, almost like a tesseract, right? Because comics, as you know, take up a lot of space.
Right.
They just do. I mean, 200 comics is a whole short box, and you can fit 2,000 cards in a binder without a problem.
Yeah, for sure.
And even the 1980 Marvel sets and 90 sets, they had such really nice art, really good reference points as well. It's just a nice. I didn't collect them like I would comics, but if I ran across them, I would buy them, and I just accumulated, I don't know, probably 30, 40 sets of them.
That's cool. Yeah. What about the coins? Like, what is it about the coins? You just like the historical nature of it?
Yeah. The coins are cool because they do show sort of the history of the United States, right? I mean, you're talking about different mintages. You're talking about commemorative coins. How you had like the standing liberties. Then you had how the changes were on even the cents, right? When you had the wheat cents, then you had the memorial cents. Now you have the shield cents. Those are just historical kind of objects that I just like, because it sort of gives you a sort of timeline of the United States, for the United States. I do have some foreign stuff too. That I just collect because my parents had a restaurant, as their business. They exchanged a lot of money. So I would go there, I would help out, and I would trade, I would trade out the coins I needed for the ones that I didn't. And so I amassed a pretty good collection of different denominations, but I'm generally more into the quarters. Those were kind of my focus, but I do have some dimes, nickels, things like that as well.
Cool. That's cool. The reason I asked that is my uncle that I talk a lot about, he liked coins too. That was one of the things that he collected. He sold everything. I mean, like if he bought it, he would generally sell it. That's what he was in it for. He actually made a living doing it for a long time. Coal mines would shut down, and he started a side hustle doing that, and it ended up being his full-time gig, at some point. But the coins were the thing that he held on to. I mean, I have them. I have the coins.
Wow, great.
I'm not necessarily a coin collector per se, but I have them. And because he gave them to me along with a bunch of other stuff, when he passed. And he liked exactly what you just said. It draws a historical timeline of the United States through the money, and it was something that he could hold on to and really just loved. He loved that better than anything that he collected. So I love that. All right, so last question 10, softball question, underhanded. Any grails? Do you have any grails that you're chasing?
Well, this is a question I have a lot of difficulty answering, Jimmy, because I don't really look at comic books in that way, right? I mean, a lot of people have these target comics that they are trying to get to, and they call them grails. I really don't look at comic books in that fashion. So I don't have a specific comic that I'm after, per se. I do have certain character appearances that I'm after. I have certain runs that I'm trying to complete. So there are quite a few in there, right? Now, the Captain America 100, which was gifted to me by my friend Lawrence Everett, would be kind of in that category. And then the 117, the first Falcon, right, would be probably what you're trying to elicit here. But I've never had like a comic book to focus on, right? Like a lot of people, they love this stuff, right?
Sure.
Like Hulk 181 and things like that, as their grail. But to me, it's another comic book in a run, believe it or not, right? And a lot of people have trouble with that mentality because I just don't look at comic books that way. I like to see the whole story, not just like these keys that people collect, which are minuscule pieces of a much larger and much more interesting puzzle. So I guess the answer is no, I'm not chasing a particular grail. I am missing a few which are more on the expensive side. And as you know, as a cheapskate collector, you're hoping for stealth buys or an estate sale and something comes up, because I'm just not going to pay anywhere near market price for comic books that I'm after.
I actually love that answer. I think that's a great answer, and it leads me to a couple other questions. Do you care what grade the book is in? Does that matter to you at all?
Not really. I'd like it to be complete. In other words, both covers. If the centerfold's detached or the cover's detached, I can reattach it. I mean, that's not like the biggest deal in the world. To me, I just want to have the comic book, right? So in my runs, there are high grade examples. My Hulk 180 here, this here is probably a 9.2, 9.4 or something. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this thing, right? But I have a Hulk 184, which is like, maybe a good, right? Now, if I run across one cheap, will I upgrade? Yes, right? But is it something that is like feels like it's something like that's missing in my collection? No. As long as it's complete, that's fine and dandy for me. I don't have slabs. I want to have the complete access to the complete comic book, right? But maybe later in my life when I'm retiring and I don't want my dog to have to deal with figuring out how to sell this stuff. I'll get stuff graded. But now that I'm actively collecting and actively reading and actively being on YouTube, I want to have access to the whole comic, and the grade, other than being complete, is inconsequential to me.
And then you said it, because I was going to follow this up with that. As far as, you don't get your books graded necessarily, you want to be able to read them.
Correct. I want to be able to have them, and okay, not everything do I want to have read for that. Like, I'm not gonna be reading these, okay, these particular copies, right? I'm not gonna be reading them, right? Because I'm not that crazy, but I want to have access to them, right? Because I want to make sure that they still mean to me when I got them originally. If I put them in a slab, I know myself. If I put them in a slab, I'm going to crack them out, because I'm going to want to see them. I'm going to want to know that they're all complete and they're all there. So to me, that doesn't make much sense. That's not disparaging anybody who does, right? Because however you collect, if you're happy with it, that's how you should do it, right? But to me, it just doesn't make much sense for the way that I collect and the way that I look at comic books.
No, I agree with what you said 100%. People collect in different ways. Some people want to have access to their books. Some people want to get them slabbed, and they're like pieces of art. I kind of fall in the middle. I don't have a ton of slabs. Like, a lot of guys have a lot of slabs. The slabs I have are generally books that my uncle gave me, that I don't even keep here, to be honest with you. They're not even in my home. The books that I have here are books that I generally want to read. If there's a run that I love, and I put a run together, I'll probably read it 25 times, and there's ways to do that. And a lot of people might frown on that, but I will probably want to. There are stories that I like to read. So, a lot of times I'll go back and read them. So no, I love all those answers, man. There's a different, everybody has a different way to go.
Yep. That's right. Yeah.
Like, what makes this hobby beautiful.
That's what makes, if we all collected the same thing, the same way, it'd be kind of boring, wouldn't it? It'd be kind of like, I like the fact that people have all these different focuses, and some of them I really resonate with me, and I'm like, wow, that's something I really like. Others I'm like, not so much into it, but they are, and that is what appeals to me, that they're so passionate about it. Like how many people do you know who are passionate about Metal Men? Probably not many.
Not many.
Not many. Look, this is their first appearance. Look at how ragged this copy is. It's awful, but you know what? I love it. I read this thing and I got no worries, none. Because I can't go any lower than what it is already. But others they look at a certain comic and they're touching it with white gloves and things like that, which is fine. Now, don't get me wrong, but to be that kind of standoffish with your comic, I like to have a relationship. I like to smell them. I like to feel them. I like to experience them in all the different senses. That's how I was when I grew up. That's how I appreciated comics. And I guess I've really never grown up, Jimmy, if you want to know the truth. But as far as my comic habits go, I'm the same today as I was when I was 13.
Me too, Roger. Me too. My wife says I'm an oversized child all the time. And I am. I'm a child at heart. I like from my youth. I like the nostalgia. I don't know. I love it. And I always have. So, Roger, I think that's a good place to end it, brother. That was I really enjoyed that, man. I'm so glad you agreed to come on. Interesting way to, I like talking to people who collect different ways. I think it's interesting. And I love your channel. And just keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we will wrap this up. If you're not subbed up to Roger, go do that. Go sub Roger up. Check him out. The channel is called Metarog. And why Metarog, real quick?
It was a nickname when I was in grade school.
Okay, I like it. So go check out the Metarog YouTube channel. I'll link Roger's stuff down below in the description. Go check him out. Especially if you're a hardcore, the way he was describing the guys that are on Grader's Notes, a hardcore comic person, Roger's channel is for you. It's that kind of love and that kind of passion for this hobby that we love that I think if you're that kind of collector, you're really, really going to enjoy. But yeah, I'll link him down below. Go check him out. Phenomenal guy. Yeah, and I guess we'll wrap it up by saying the discount code at Street Level Hero LA. I like to always say this at the end. You'll get 10% off your order over there, but most importantly, 25% of your overall order is donated to the American Cancer Society for Cancer Research. So make sure you go over there, check that out, find you something cool to buy, and raise some money for a good cause. All right, guys, phenomenal interview. Roger over at Metarog. This has been 10 Questions.